Hi again, and we're back. So let's speak about now. Let's speak about the paints. So oil paints are the main thing that you will see on the painting, and there are a lot of paints on the market right now, and you'll be really just like you might get lost if you go to the traditional shop, because there are many brands, and within one brand they have also a different type of quality of oil paints, and there you have hundreds of colors. So I would suggest to start with the very basics, because this is what all the professional artists they do. They work with a limited palette, so you don't need to have hundreds of these paints. You need just basic colors that are foundation. And then you will mix them, because the harmony of the painting, it comes from the limiting to a certain number of main colors. So, and then if you mix the same colors, for example, and they'll come in as a different kind of shades, different variations of, so you'll come out with lots of colors that will still have the same tonalities, the same kind of hues. So you'll see this kind of, so it will be very pleasant for the eye to see it, to look at it. The main kind of problem of the beginner artists are that they're afraid of mixing colors. They think that it's easier just to buy the pre-mixed colors, and this is something that people also do with acrylics. And if you go to watercolors, there are also quite a lot of colors that are already kind of pre-mixed and ready to use, but it's different, especially from watercolors. In watercolors, it's much more difficult to mix the colors to the same level like in oils or acrylics, because in watercolors it's very easy to make very muddy colors. But the beauty of oil and acrylics are really just that if you mix them yourself, they'll be much beautiful than when you buy the color that is already pre-mixed, because you don't know which pigments are there. There might be completely different pigments, and this color will be just like out of the whole kind of harmony of your palette. That's why I came out with this kind of idea of creating this Infinity series oil paints, and it's just in 3 palettes. So Essential, Portrait, and Impressionist palettes. So these are 8 paints in each set, and one of them it's white. So there are 7 colors in each set, and because historically there were not so many colors, and all the great masters, they were just like mixing, they were making their own paints. But now, because of the advances of the technology and chemical industry, we have such a big advantage that we can have the paints in the tubes. So, and we should use this kind of advance, but to our own kind of advantage. So here I want to show that especially in the Essential palette, these are just really basic colors, 2 of each, 2 yellows, 2 reds, 2 blues, and then I added also black, although I didn't want to add black, but I added because many people, they still use it. Although in the color mixing guide that we send together for people who bought our oil paints, I showed several of recipes how you can mix the chromatic black. Chromatic black, it's a black that you mix using all these 3 main kind of basic colors. So these are fundamental colors, really. So here you can see two yellows in a more warmer and cooler kind of shades, 2 reds, and these are really kind of cadmium red, it's warm, alizarin crimson, it's cool, again, the same kind of cerulean blue is more warmer color, and cobalt blue is cooler color. It's quite neutral as well, so it's a true blue, it's called. And ivory black, it's one of the most I would say pleasant blacks, because most of the blacks, they are quite dull, but this is more transparent black, so it's not too dull. It will not dominate your kind of color, and it's quite good also for color mixing. The next, and you can also see, even without opening, so at the back you can see the colors here as well, from each palette and from the palette that you're holding. So basically, if you use just this palette, you can mix up any type of color that you really want. And if you want to increase the color mixtures, for example, so you can use also additional colors, for example. So basically in portrait palette there are all the earthy colors, so these are very much kind of pleasant, neutral colors that you can see them everywhere in the nature. So, and if you want to make color mix, skin tone mixes, or you want to add, for example, if you want to neutralize any very bright color, very much dominating color, you can always use some umbers, for example, in the mixture. For example, the raw umber that I really love. In the past, when I was just beginning to paint with oils, I really didn't understand this color because it's just brown. And there is also burnt umber, which is very similar, but they are different in color mixing. So you'll see there is a subtle difference, but it really just like makes a huge, very nice effect. So if you want to have some kind of nature-like painting, you can tone down a bit, make it more kind of natural using just adding raw umber. So it's called graying. And to gray any color, you should add its opposite. So on the color wheel, if you look at the color wheel, any basic color wheel, you'll see the complementary colors. And otherwise, you can just add raw umber. So that's my life hack. And of course, there is a very beautiful palette. It's called Impressionist palette. I really love all the Impressionists, and it's really very beautiful. So these are colors that were used by Impressionist artists. Of course, you can combine together with the Essential palette and Portrait palette. So all together, it's everything that you need. You don't need any other colors, because you can mix any color, really any color. That's why it's called Infinity palette. That's why I call it Infinity series. And here there are all these more transparent, jewel-like kind of colors, and including lemon yellow, Indian yellow, ruby red, dexazan purple. These are viridian, ultramarine, Prussian blue. So these are really such beautiful colors that are a little bit more transparent, and they're really great for any type of shading, especially all this kind of cooler colors you can use easily for all kind of shades, because for shades you need to use transparent colors, and these are all transparent colors. So you can see what I'm talking about here. So the properties of each paint, it's written here. So there is light fastness, excellent. So light fastness means that it will not fade away over time, because the light, the sunlight especially, it fades away lots of colors. But professional grade paints, they usually should have very high kind of light fastness, so it ensures that over time it will not get these kind of dull colors that you don't understand what is it. Is it green or is it red or is it blue? So it just like becomes very gray. So it will keep the pigmentation. Then opacity means how transparent is it? Is it opaque? That means that it doesn't, you cannot see through, or is it transparent? So, or there is something in between as well. It's a medium opacity. It can be, so in terms of transparency, opacity, my advice is that you use transparent colors in the shades and you use opaque colors on the highlights. So if you look also in the, I don't know, on any picture or, so usually the shades are a little bit more kind of transparent, subdued, and everything that catches the light, it has very strong kind of opaque type of highlight. So you can just see that it's super white or some other kind of color. So, and also another kind of usage of this opacity kind of marks, it's about color mixing as well. So usually you should also see it yourself. Usually transparent colors, they really make beautiful, they combine very well with other colors and they make very beautiful color mixes. So just bear in mind this. And of course it's written pigment code. So about pigment codes, so you should check how many pigments are mixed in one of the colors. So you should aim to go for 1, maximum 2, or just like really in exceptional kind of situations there can be 3 colors mixed, and usually the third one it can be white. So just to have more kind of opaque type of color. But the less pigments are mixed in one color, the better, because it means that it's a pure pigment. Because like I said before, it applies to any colors, but especially in watercolors, the more you mix, the more muddy it becomes. It applies also to the oils, although it's a bit more kind of forgiving medium. The more you mix different pigments, the muddier the color will become. So if you want to have the more beautiful, very kind of vibrant color, aim for the colors, the paints that has very little kind of number of pigments. That's why that's where it comes also the idea of limited palette, because you mix your colors and you know exactly what you're mixing. If you buy some pre-mixed colors, so for example there are lots of colors that are kind of, I don't know, very complex colors, and then you add it to some additional kind of 1 color or 2 colors, it will become very muddy. So that's why you can also check it yourself. If you mix it yourself and there will be the same colors somewhere else in the painting, it will create a beautiful harmony. So so that's probably it, because I can talk about the colors forever, and we'll also make another kind of video where I'll talk about our oil paints separately, so just about color reds, what kind of reds we have and how they are different from each other. Blues, what kind of blues we have, because we really use mostly it's a primary or secondary colors, so it's quite very beautiful colors that you cannot mix yourself. So this is primary colors, these are your primary colors, and out of mixing primary colors you can mix any secondary colors or tertiary colors. That's why I'm very much pro limited palette. And of course you can mix and match colors from our different paints. This is already tested, so all the colors, they are not repeated, that's the thing, except for the white, because white is it's a non-color, I would say, because white in oil, it's the main color for mixing, color mixing. Or you just use a little tiny bit at the very end for the highlights, for the final highlights, final touches. But otherwise, it's really used for the color mixing. And also, what I want to tell, when you choose the paints, if you choose ours, it's already there because I tested and I chose everything. So this is really quality that I personally can guarantee you. So it's very high quality, professional grade paints with very high pigment load as well. This is about pigment load. So the paints, the oil paints, for example. So you need to aim for the more kind of the darkest type of pigment. So because I'm not speaking about colors that you add black and then it will become darker. No, I mean it should be quite rich, the color. For example, this alizarin crimson, if you add a little bit of white or any kind of red, you add a bit of white, it will become pinkish. So to lighten it up, you add usually yellow, or to thin it, you usually use some oil. So, but to make it darker, you cannot make it so much darker. You cannot make it richer. So that's why it should be rich already at the very beginning. You can always just make it lighter, but you cannot make it deeper. That's what I mean. So, and also just the last thing is about the consistency of the color. So the paints that we produce, ZenART supplies, are very much consistent. So you have the same consistency. It's very buttery. It's very much kind of very pleasant to work with since the beginning, and they're all more or less the same. The thing of the oil paints, it's quite difficult to get to this kind of level of consistency. It's a lot of work to get such kind of consistency. Yeah, so buttery consistency of the texture, because it depends on the properties of the pigment. So because some pigments, they are more kind of based on the rocks, minerals, soil, I would say. So these are all your earthy colors, and they tend to become very much kind of like really like hard, like soil. And some paints like from the Impressionist palette that are very transparent and quite light in texture, they tend to become quite liquid, I'd say. But in our palettes, and you can try it, and everybody really love it, that the consistency is very similar. So it's really easy to work together. It's very easy to work since the beginning. You don't need to add so much mediums, because that's the thing that many people, they ask, do we need mediums, do we need that? So I'll talk about mediums separately, but I would say you don't need so much mediums with our paints. So also they dry quite quickly, so they don't dry too slowly, because it depends on the oil that is used as a binder. So ours is linseed oil that is purified and sun-dried, and so it dries a little bit faster than some other types of oil. Like walnut oil, it will not dry for quite a while. So it's considered to be one of the slowest drying oils. But our oil, it's very workable, so you can work for quite a good time, but it also dries quite well, sooner than many others. So that's why you don't need to add also drying mediums either. So that's what I wanted to tell about the oils, and please let me know if something is not clear, or you want to know more, because I'll be very happy to answer. It's really a topic that I can talk forever. So in the next video, I want to talk about supports. So what we are painting on. so supports are usually the canvas or anything else. So that's the next video, and see you there. Thank you.